This is Uncle Ruckus. No relation. I'm a very spiritual person. I start out each day thanking the man for the sunrise, for the land I walk on, for the air I breathe, and for this show, the Era of Reconstruction.
Welcome to the Air Reconstruction Podcast, a New Journey Pack production for this Thursday, the 15th of October, 2020. I am your host, Darren Williams, and the Director of Policy and Endorsements of New Journey Pack. And joining me is the wonderful, also very, commanding AJ Swenson, our Chief of Staff.
Trying to silence me, y'all, but they can't. Okay.
I said she's commanding because actually she demanded us to change a podcast title.
The correct adjective is successfully commanded.
And we'll get back to that. And then we have our awesome, super awesome CEO, Archie Pruitt.
So glad to be on board. We have some great stuff going on with the pack. We're actually starting, I thought we were starting Saturday, but we're actually starting the door knocking on Tuesday. So if you're listening to us and you're in District 21, it is possible New Journey Pack employees will be visiting your home to talk to you about Laura Loomer, who's an amazing journalist and a free speech advocate, stands up for the Second Amendment. She is actually known for exposing Ilhan Omar's marriage to her brother. So,
Incestuous.
They called her a liar, they called her a cheat, and all this kind of stuff. It turned out to be she was right all along. And then we still have our other campaigns going. So www.newjourneypack.org. Go to donate and give us some of your hard-earned dollars or that COVID money if you saved it.
Good, fantastic. So listen, we have a big show today. Now, whether we're going to get to everything we have planned, that is to be determined. But how do you guys want to start here? Look, the topics are Obama is going to be back on the trail for Joe Biden, which is kind of weird considering that when he's ever on the trail for somebody, they end up losing. So I don't know why. I guess they're really desperate. I thought Joe Biden had it in the bag. So Andrew Gillum and Stacey Abrams would probably say, Joe, I don't think you need Obama. The second thing we have is apparently COVID. Some guy named COVID visited the Biden and Hillary, the Biden and Harris campaign. So we're going to be talking about that. And wondering if Joe and Harris actually have caught it and they're blocking that information as they're doing the rest of this information. And then we're going to go and talk about the Twitter account lock suspension on this great information that the New York Post brought up, and how it's basically the front page of everything. I mean, even comic books now. But it's interesting how it's been said quite often by the illustrious Rush Limbaugh that the events of the election have yet to happen. And this is actually kind of one of those things, considering that, what are we, less than 3 weeks away from November the 3rd?
Wow, really?
Really,
Man,
what, the events, or we're less?
No, I'm just saying the fact that the election is around the corner is. Ooh, that was fast.
That was extremely fast.
That was fast.
So, what do you guys want to attack first? Obama.
I guess
you want to make fun of Obama?
Probably the lead. Oh, well, okay. Then go to Obama.
Oh, right. We played the video about the censorship.
Right.
Yeah, that's the lead.
That you're absolutely right. That is the lead. So, basically, what has happened is that a story came out from the New York Post mentioning how the local, let me find this thing. Let me get this together.
The story, so the vice president's son, Hunter Biden, had a computer that needed to be fixed. He took it to a computer
shop
center
in Delaware.
in Delaware.
Yes.
He forgot about it. left it there. It then reverted to the property, sort of like if you leave your dry cleaning after 30 days, it reverts to their property. It reverted to the owner of the property store. He opened it up to look at it, and then he realized it was full of government documents, correspondence with foreign individuals. So he made a copy of the hard drive himself. He then took the other portion to the FBI, and then obviously he had a story, and he began to share that story with individual people who reported on it. That was part one. That's the story, and then the story of the story is Twitter and Facebook. When this started to proliferate,
right.
They decided to block it, wouldn't let you share it, close the account, didn't close it, blocked the account of the New York Post who published the story, blocked the account of the Trump campaign, blocked the account of Kayleigh and Ted Cruz and other people. And then there was another bombshell again where they released a story about some type of payment between China and Hunter Biden, and Twitter and Facebook took the same action. And then Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, came back and said, whoa, we messed up. And so that's where we are. So you have the story itself, then you have the story about the story. What I find out most ironic is that I'm going to post this on Twitter. What it reminds me of the verse, what the enemy meant for evil, God turned it for good. If they would have just left the story alone, it probably would have went away.
Right. Yep.
But because they blocked it, it ended up turning the story into the story.
Right.
Well, I think the reason why they blocked the story is because of what happened with Hillary Clinton back in 2016 with the server.
Right.
And then James Comey having to come out there and then try
Benghazi
to do damage
too.
control. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know, and so
I don't think it was that at all.
you don't think so?
I think what happened is this. The Biden campaign has 4 former top Twitter executives, I believe, working on them. One of them made a call to Twitter and said, hey, this story is wrong, it's false, it's a lie, and they responded. Facebook also, some of their top engineers and employees left Facebook to go temporarily work for the Biden campaign. I don't think they were sitting down thinking, oh, it's like Hillary, it's like this.
Well,
I think they just picked up the phone and called and said, hey, we want the story now.
Well, there's some of that whiplash Darren's talking about too, that social media companies experienced after the election.
Well, they did, yeah. Claiming Russian collusion. And so here they are attempting to, I guess, whether even the playing field or more so making an advantage for Joe Biden by basically burying the story so there will not be a repeat of what happened with Hillary Clinton. So the FBI comes out there and they said, well, you know, we've reviewed this, we investigated, and we found that there's nothing to it.
But there wouldn't have been a repeat because Hillary Clinton had 2 years of investigations into this matter. Then they came out. This was brand new. So, and
there was also the Cambridge Analytica thing that happened with Facebook. People were saying you allowed the Trump campaign to use Facebook to push messaging and blah, 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 blah. And people were boycotting Facebook. Facebook stock even dropped that day.
Yeah, but their stock went back up.
I mean, of course it went back up. But
because Facebook, what we don't understand is that Facebook's money is not made here in the U.S. We should get this right. Twitter's money, I think Twitter still is, but Facebook is not. 80% of Facebook's user base is in India and China and other countries. It's not even here. So if the U.S. goes away from Facebook, Facebook will still survive. This is the digital world we live in. By the way, another story is the NBA. This same thing that they just got rid of a coach, the coach that was critical of China.
Mm-hmm, right.
These companies, their primary dollars made, Hollywood, by the way, is on this track. Most of their money isn't made here in the U.S. anymore. I mean, it's just not, you know. So, yeah, their U.S. stock dropped, but this is why they don't care. This is why they don't care. Facebook's fear wasn't necessarily a stock price drop. Facebook's fear was that between the Democrats and Republicans may align to come after them and impact them much greater than their stock price would, right? Because they are an American companies, can block and counter and then threaten allies and stuff like this, but they don't care about that kind of stuff.
But that still points to what Darren was saying, that there was whiplash on behalf of the Democrats after the last election. And therefore, they literally said, we can't let this happen again, as their agenda.
Listen, I agree that perhaps this may not mirror the whole situation with Hillary Clinton with the server, but I think it has remnants of basically being something to where it could be used as an advantage for President Trump 2 to 3 weeks before the election, as what was attempted. Well, I don't want to say attempted, but what was almost evident to the situation with the server. So, if Joe Biden is secure in him winning, this wouldn't necessarily be a problem. They could just say, it's a story, it's going to blow over. There's no truth to it, but they're literally going out of their way to suppress the story, to literally suppress the story. So there has to be something to where they're not very comfortable with what the position of Joe Biden is. And that's why I said these polls, even though they say Joe Biden is up 11 points or 9 points or whatever the case may be, they're not comfortable at all. Even with this, there's a huge backlash with NBC now of having the town hall at the same time that they're having Joe Biden's town hall. People are very upset. They said, what did Don Lemon say? It's going to divide the country. They could have had the same town. They could have had the town hall on a different day or on a different hour, or whatever the case may be. But if Joe Biden is so secure in his victory, why are you worried about the town hall being on the same day and the same time as what Joe Biden's is?
Well, to me, them being upset about that, I don't understand. I don't get the link there, because Joe Biden and Donald Trump having the same town hall the same day, if I felt good about Joe Biden's position, I do want them having the town hall on the same day. Because if I'm in the tank for Joe Biden, I'm watching Joe Biden. I don't care about Trump. He's a liar. He's a racist.
Yeah. Actually,
you'd want him on the same day, so that way Joe Biden's real supporters can't even tune into Trump because they're too busy listening to Joe. So that's I think that one may be a legitimate upset, a legitimate reason to be upset, to say, listen, you have two presidential candidates. Why don't you have the town halls on different days so people can hear both candidates? That's actually the most fair argument there is, to be truthful. Now, maybe you don't need to do that now, assuming that you can say, people are going to record it, and this is not the old days of television where you don't have a VCR or anything, you can't record the show. So
and you also don't want Trump going around boasting that his ratings beat Joe Biden.
Well, and that's probably what's going to happen. His ratings are going to beat Joe Biden.
If they do, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
He's good TV, but yeah, I think that might be a consideration too. Those ratings.
Maybe they have, but I don't. Well, that presupposes that individuals believe that the ratings are going to move a vote. That Trump's saying my ratings
it's a narrative. It's people may not want to give that talking point or that narrative to the other side.
Yeah, I just don't see who cares about the narrative. Like to what end?
Well, I think that if we're going to talk about why would people be upset, that should definitely be listed as a reason. And back to the Facebook and Twitter thing, Facebook basically said it was reducing distribution. So they basically said, we're not totally blocking it. We're just making sure it doesn't go to, it's not shared too much.
Well, how do they measure reducing distribution?
Well, because
is there some people that they allow it to go to and then others they don't?
So it used to be when, let's say, 5,000 people shared a story between each other. Facebook's algorithm would read 5,000 people are sharing the story. It's possible others want to see the story as well that are outside the network of these 5,000 people. So it would pick the story up and then push it into the home feed of other people that may not be talking about the story. So when they reduce the footprint of the story, what they can do is say, hey, these 5,000 people shared the story, but we're going to keep it amongst these 5,000 people. It won't get picked up outside unless someone specifically shares it outside the group. Yeah. So that's what I believe they meant by reduce the footprint.
Do you actually believe that's what they're doing?
In the
sense of just limiting it and not totally, squashing it or just.
Well, it seemed like I saw a couple smaller people post it, but then certain conservative influencers couldn't. So they may have just been using their algorithm to prevent people with larger platforms. I'm not exactly sure how they did that, but it did seem like there was some irregularity as to who could post it. at the time. So
I would say there was probably, I think Facebook did probably really reduce the distribution. I think Facebook is different Twitter in the marketplace. Number one, I actually think Facebook doesn't care about the U.S. The U.S. market, but let's assume they do care about the U.S. market. A lot of Facebook's U.S. market is conservatives, so Facebook has a lot more. They're older people, in other words, than Twitter, and Facebook, under that theory, would have a lot more reason to try to dance around the topic. If you remember, from the very beginning, Mark Zuckerberg was saying our commitment to free speech is greater than our commitment to censorship.
Right.
So he was taking that line, and he took that line to Congress. And when Trump shared some stuff about, I forgot what it was, not about COVID, but before that, and Twitter blocked it, Facebook didn't, and Mark Zuckerberg said,
right, he was talking about hydroxychloroquine.
No, this was before that, because Facebook did block or did try to take down the hydrochloroquine stuff. But it was something before that Trump shared. I forgot what it was, and Facebook wouldn't block it. And that's when and Twitter did, et cetera. And Mark Zuckerberg gave that statement. But I don't think at all. I don't believe, I don't think Facebook, do I think they're biased against conservatives? Yes. But I think they're trying to do a better dance, because if every single Twitter, I don't believe this is the case, by the way. I don't believe this is the case. But if every single conservative, Trump supporter, let's say Trump supporter or Trump voter, or those who lean Trump, said, you know what, Facebook is filth and it's biased, and they left, then I think their U.S. business would crater.
And I think that's probably what needs to happen.
And
actually, that was something I was going to point out yesterday when you were talking about, monopolies and how this information that we give them is voluntary. It's not mandatory. It's not forced. But it is, ladies and gentlemen, Autry is very upset because the video thing for the second time has not been on, and we've been on the air for about 20 minutes. I've always believed in this, that the American people, if you don't like Facebook, and I'm not really on Facebook that much anymore.
Yeah.
If you don't like Facebook, just get off of it.
Conservatives won't do it. I mean,
I understand. I mean, most people have invested their business in it. I get it.
Since Kellogg's did that BS with Breitbart News, which impacted my personal bottom line, I have not purchased a Kellogg's product since then, because I made a decision.
Yeah.
I haven't purchased a Nike product since then. The rest of my family, because I made a decision. And I think until we are willing
to sacrifice, which is a small sacrifice.
Netflix, Hulu, HBO, until we're willing to do that, or we say it's not worth it.
a lot of people did
just
cancel their Netflix, but at the same time, Facebook is still
re-signed up later when they got that free month.
Yeah, true.
A lot of people still a lot of these platforms at the same time. Do I understand that they have the freedom to block what they want to block? Yes, it's their platform. It's unfortunate that they've kind of cowered to this pressure. In a way, it's like, or to their connection. The social media giants have kind of cowered to this pressure.
They don't have the freedom to block what they want to block.
Well, they did. They have the right to say, we don't want to share this post. We don't want people, so we could make our algorithm suppress this post.
They did do that, but I would say they don't have the right to do it.
I give it to them. This is your platform, fine. But I agree. I think we have to start figuring out, and that's what Parler and Gab are trying to do, to say, well, bring your politics here. You can discuss it freely here.
So let me give you a great example. Let's talk about cell phones. I don't know if you've read your cell phone contract, your end user agreement, right? When you sign up with Facebook and Twitter, you use an end user agreement. When you sign up for a cell phone, you sign up for an end user agreement that as long as you do X, right? As long as you do X, then you are allowed to make a call on your phone. And the phone company cannot come to you and say, we don't like who you're calling, So we're cutting your phone line off. That's not the agreement. It's the same thing. When a platform puts out a membership and you're doing a transaction, you're giving them all the data and the right to the data that you own. That's the bargain. That's the consideration. They're saying, you give us all this data and we will allow you to do these, and here are the rules. And this has been well litigated in other matters. Here are all the rules that we will allow you to, that you have to follow on the platform. Well, the second, and companies have been sued for this before, with park entries, and theme parks have been sued about this, and you allow one person under that same agreement to do something, and you don't allow the other person, that's actually fraud. So there is a basis, and Twitter is becoming real close to this line. There is a basis for being able to say, no, they did it, but they can't do it because they published a user agreement. And in their user agreement, they said, if you follow these rules, we will do X. Well, New York Post followed these rules, and then Twitter did X outside of the rules. So the way freedom works in business is, yes, you have, unless it's a statutory requirement, for example, you can't discriminate against someone who's black, but the way freedom works in business is there still is an equality argument, and businesses are sued about this. There still is an equality argument that when you board an airplane, right, when you do X, Y, and Z, that's why if you read an airplane end user agreement, it actually says in there, in the ticket agreements when you buy on Expedia or something like that, it says in there, people pay different prices for different seats. Mm-hmm. That there will be a disparity in the seating. So that's the issue I think that Facebook and Twitter on the platforms have, and that's the mechanism by which. And I think Ted Cruz, because I was listening to that and I listened to the whole thing he wrote, and I think he figured that out. I think because he's certainly smarter than me, and particularly in the area of law, but he figured out, wait a second, the second they start saying we do X and then you do X, the second they violated that, then they violated that contract, that implied contract. I'd have to go back. There's a couple of good books. I was just reading one on contract law. So I guess it's
a lawsuit that someone eventually has to decide to take up.
Which
I know
is problematic.
Dennis Prager sued Google for censoring PragerU and demonetizing and stuff.
He sued YouTube. Yeah.
So that didn't go through. So I guess it's just someone having the right case and suing them and being able to be successful with that case. So.
Yeah, they will. Dennis Prager was publishing the YouTube videos, and they were demonetizing
through PragerU,
through PragerU, and demonetizing
and
his
suppressing
videos.
them. Yeah.
Now YouTube in their end user agreement, that was part of that case. YouTube in their YouTube, which is owned by Alphabet, which also owns Google.
Right.
YouTube in their end user agreement had in there a clause about changing messages, shifting, etc. But if you notice,
well, it was against Google and YouTube.
It was against Google and YouTube. I think Google's was, I don't even remember. Let me not say that. I will say that I think PragerU ended up working something out. Because I've seen their videos now and I see commercial rolls in front of them.
Maybe they backed off. I think it was dismissed.
So I think originally was dismissed, and then I think YouTube figured out. I'd have to go back and read the original brief. Yeah. But I think YouTube figured out we better do something different because he lost this time, but it's just a matter of time. And sometimes it takes stuff, particularly in the legal sphere, it takes a while for stuff to germinate.
Okay.
And so what's going to happen, I honestly believe there's another thing I mentioned earlier about the personal data. The courts, I don't think, are quite here yet. But the second your data becomes
public information,
valuable to you, and it's considered a property of yours, because it's not right now. Right? When you put your data out, it's really not a property right now. It's like your blood. There's actually a case about this. isn't there a case like if someone took their blood and then, or maybe it was a hypothetical case, if someone draws your blood and then in it is a cure for something and then they turn it into a cure, you don't have a right to the profits off of that because it's out of you at that point. And so the question is, it's just a matter of finding the right time, the right case. We've seen it with Supreme Court cases. It really is. It's a matter of finding the right issue.
Yeah.
And it's gonna happen. There's just too many lawsuits.
It might. I mean, because Tulsi, I think, sued Google too. It just I guess there just hasn't been the right instance or the right case yet.
Yeah, and I think it hasn't been the right case.
Tulsi Gabbard.
And it hasn't been egregious enough yet. But it's coming. And I think if we see this case, it's more likely to happen at a state level. All these cases have been federal cases, I believe. It's more likely to happen at a state level. So I think that would be interesting. You had James Daremore, the guy who did the memo, who sued Google.
He said they were reverse sexism?
Reverse sexism, I guess that's what you call it. So also, that was a case, which is interesting because California actually has much more strict. Like you can't discriminate on political affiliation in California, according to California state law.
Well, wouldn't you consider all this that what Google and not Google, well maybe Google, what Facebook and what Twitter has done, is kind of a what they try to ding Trump on in reference to Russian collusion as well as interfering in an election. Wouldn't this kind of the same thing? I mean, let's just say that China said to, and you're saying you're saying that Facebook and Twitter are very much, you want to say it in bed with China. Maybe China said, look, I need you to bury this story because we need to have Joe Biden clean as the wind-driven snow as much as possible, and we need to have him win. So and maybe China got on the phone and said, listen, we've been monitoring you, we've been watching this, and you need to squash this story. Yeah. So in actuality, it could be Chinese collusion. I mean, we could make the argument of that, and then we could put Joe on trial. I mean, or Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
Well, Joe will probably not be on trial. It's the same as Obama. This plausible.
Well, of course not. You know what I'm saying.
Plausible deniability. But I guess I could see where Ukraine might have reached out to Twitter and said, hey, this story is false. You need to take it down. It doesn't need to, and then Twitter, although Ukraine China's more likely the case because China makes up a huge user base.
Right.
Ukraine, I don't even know if Facebook is a prominent platform there, or Twitter. I think you have the bottom line. The real bottom line is this: the level of scrutiny. The level of scrutiny that these platforms put to conservatives, they don't put to liberals.
Of course.
Because if that was the case, one of the commentators pointed out today, I was reading online, which is I'm actually amazed I didn't even think about this because it's so obvious, is Trump's taxes. The New York Times disseminated Trump's taxes, which actually happened to be a felony if those papers are true. And what Jack Dorsey wrote out and said, hey, if it's hacked or illegal material, we will not let it be on our platform. Well, they didn't do that to the New York Times. That was like the third. Twitter made like 3 excuses. The excuse they settled on was hacked information can't be on the platform. And by the way, it is actually in their user agreement. So if that's the case, the New York Times shouldn't have been allowed to proliferate that story about Trump's taxes.
Right.
So the real question is, they do censor some left stuff, but nowhere near at the same level they censor people on the right. I'm really surprised that they did it to the New York Post, to be truthful with you. I think Twitter and Facebook now, they should be praying to God on their knees or to whatever devil they worship that Trump doesn't win. Because I think the first thing that happens is these companies come under a gross regulation or that 230 protections get stripped. Because the Democrats wanted to strip them too.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I think they said Elizabeth Warren supports repealing Section 230.
Nancy Pelosi has said something about it. Yeah. So, I mean, this is...
well, especially if he wins the House,
one thing they were saying, just a side note on that, is that if you do repeal Section 230, all you're going to get is even more regulation on social media. is that now they're going to restrict what people say even more to protect themselves from lawsuits.
Well, what'll happen though is I think what will happen is they do restrict that stuff. It'll make it so. Think about Twitter's platform and Facebook's platform, particularly Twitter. What do they give you? Nothing.
Nothing really, and you give them everything.
They give you absolutely nothing. I mean, do you think they give you something?
I mean, I think they give you a place. It's like owning the place where everyone comes to talk.
Yeah, well, they give you some.
It's
Well, give you a little space. I mean, digital space.
Yeah, they give you a place
They give you digital
where
space.
if you want to promote your thoughts, you can promote your thoughts.
But I think what happens eventually, Twitter right now is Twitter because of the brand and they're the biggest in the space, and they've mastered this platform.
Yeah.
This particular like immediate SMS. It's like giant text messaging to me platform. I think if the 230 goes away, they come under more regulation. Then I believe what happens is they end up they'll end up cannibalizing themselves. Because if people stop, I mean, it just one day folks are gonna wake up. I honestly believe this. Left, right. I think one day people are gonna wake up and just go, I'm done with Twitter.
Well, I think that's the best thing. The best thing that can happen is that we have more competition with these platforms,
Which is
and that's kind of already starting.
right, and that's what I always say. It's you just go out there and you make it.
But
I understand people have developed their whole empire on Facebook and on Twitter. They put their
Facebook
eggs
in particular, maybe not necessarily
one
Twitter.
basket. Yeah, but it's a situation where, like for us, I mean, our podcast, we have our own website.
Yeah.
that has the podcast. I mean,
well, the problem is this: even if you say there's competition, it's not real competition until you have. It's not. I'll put it to you this way: when you walk into the store, you don't see signs with people's parlor handles on the store.
Yeah, they're not at that level yet.
So that's the problem, is that you just by the sheer size that they are, you can't really compete.
Just like Google they're starting to have more competition from DuckDuckGo and search engines
Bing.
like that,
Right.
but they're still pretty
still
above all the others.
Because they're just.
Well, I guess everyone has become very comfortable with Google. I try to, if I'm really looking up something that I know,
I'll do two
Google,
searches.
Yeah, you got to.
I'll do that. Which, if you've ever done that, isn't that amazing? I don't know if you guys have done that. Do a search in Google and then do a search in DuckDuckGo or Google and then Bing.
Yeah.
And look at the results you get.
Oh, they're totally different. They're totally different.
It's crazy, especially when it comes to these political topics.
Yeah.
And
then
remarkable.
also you have to kind of form the search as if what you're searching for actually does exist.
Yeah.
And then it'll pop up.
Right.
So anyways, I think the one person that needs
I don't even use Chrome. I mean, you cannot use Google Chrome as a browser. I mean, all these different ways you can get around and encourage that competition.
Yeah. The one person I think that needs to be censored for everybody is Obama.
Oh my God!
Is he still around? What
Well,
is
he was
doing?
just on a podcast.
What is
and
Obama doing?
He's about to hit the campaign trail. I mean, here's a
And he's got a memoir coming out.
a memoir coming out.
You got a
Did
clip?
he write that?
So he's not hitting the campaign trail for.
He's promoting
Biden.
a book.
He's promoting a book.
Well, apparently, hey, he might be. It says in the Hill, Trump to stump for Biden in final campaign stretch. Former vice president will hit the campaign trail for a Democrat nominee, Joe Biden, in the closing 2 weeks of the presidential race, and is expected to visit key battleground states, sources confirm to the Hill. Now, this is the interesting part. Democrats familiar with the plan say discussions have centered around sending Obama to states like Florida, ding, 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 Trump won Florida, Pennsylvania, ding, 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 Trump won Pennsylvania, Michigan.
Narrowly.
Well, he won it. I mean, for
Yeah.
goodness
Pretty
sake,
narrow.
does anyone say, okay, he barely won it. Michigan and Wisconsin, he both won those states.
Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, he won all three with less than 80,000 votes.
Yeah, well, less than
Yeah.
80,000 votes. Hey, I'll take them. But, of course, Obama and Biden won both of those, all four of those states in 2008 and 2012. The reason why, I talk about this censoring of Obama because it has been said that every time Obama goes out there and campaigns for you, you end up losing. I mean,
Is that true?
Yeah. I mean,
Who is he campaigning for besides himself?
Well, Stacey Gillum, remember?
Stacey Gillum.
Yeah, right.
Stacey
I'm mixing the two.
Abrams.
I'm mixing
the
two.
governor of
Yeah, I'm
Georgia.
mixing the two here. You know, the trans. Well, anyway.
Well, she won.
Yeah, right. She won. Andrew Gillum, the crackhead.
Maybe it's only the black people he supports.
Maybe it's only the black
my-
people.
Well, if they already weren't a strong, depending on who the candidate is as well.
Andrew Gillum
Thank
came
God
really
he
close.
did not win.
He
Dude.
did.
If Andrew Gillum would have supported
Oh my
school choice,
God.
he would have won.
Yeah, he probably would have won. And
Yeah.
then it would have been like crack for everybody.
Oh my
And
God.
Stacey Abrams, is she campaigning now?
She's focusing on voter suppression and
Voter
registration.
suppression.
What's voter suppression?
I don't know what voter suppression is. I guess if you don't have an ID,
AJ,
and
do you
don't-
have
they don't-
voter suppression?
They don't allow you.
Do I have? Is
No,
that
do
a
you know what?
disease?
Do you know what it is?
I mean, the way that it's used today.
Besides the ID part, we know the ID.
The way that it's used today, it's used like whenever Kanye running for office apparently is voter suppression. So
Yeah. But before we get to the voter suppression, I do want to point out some additional parts of what has happened during Biden. Obama.
That's a great one.
he calls himself Obama
I know
by
he does.
Democrats.
Oh yeah, remember he
so-
had the love bracelet. Anyways, it says in 2009, President Trump party controlled both chambers of 27 state legislators. 8 years later, Democrats controlled both chambers of only 13 states. Among the states that slipped from Democrat control, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Iowa, and West Virginia. It also mentioned that the Democrat Party had lost. Let's put this as past tense. Had lost a net total of 13 governorships and 816 state legislator seats since Obama entered office. That's like they said since Dwight Eisenhower, but that's pretty bad. That's.
So he's putting Obama out to turn out the vote for
Biden.
the black vote, though.
Right, yeah.
I'm assuming that's what they're trying to
Well,
repeat.
yes, because what he was saying was that in some interview he did today, a podcast interview, he said, I would like to influence those suburban white women, but because they listen, an interesting thing, he said, because they listen to Fox News and Rush Limbaugh, I can't do that.
Oh wow.
Jeez.
These
So
guys
anyways.
really don't care about who they turn off.
No, they
they're
don't.
really just like
they're just they're showing
this
their
is like the
ass.
Hillary deplorables thing. It's like, do you
Times
not
two.
realize?
That's what President Obama said.
That's what he said.
Man,
That's what he said.
that's surprising.
Yeah, he's normally pretty careful, but
I think he's frustrated because I think, you watch the hearings now and everything is about Obamacare. I mean, that's his last legacy. If that gets destroyed, then people are going to be saying, who the hell, who's Obama?
No. Don't remember
The
Obama.
funny thing about that is that
black.
Obamacare was so unpopular before when he
tremendously
was in
unpopular.
office that literally that after those 2 years, that next election, the
Well, he-
Republicans swept in,
Yeah.
running on being against Obamacare.
Yeah, I don't think Obamacare is all that popular now because most people don't know what the hell it is. They don't know. They don't know.
They just know they got to pay twice as much.
So Obamacare is not all that Basically, the people that are paying it is not popular, and the people that get it under Medicaid is popular. I mean, it's like everything else. It's 50-50.
Yeah.
Is there anything right now in this country that is popular universally? Social Security's
Well,
unpopular.
Probably those stimulus checks.
You know what? That's probably it. It's
That's
only-
really
That's
popular.
probably-
yeah, that's pretty popular. $1,200.
Because you see the rich and the poor getting that stimulus check.
That's true.
But you know what's funny too is that Obama, there was this whole political article about how he didn't think Joe was really capable.
Oh, yeah. He
of
didn't.
being
Yeah.
president.
Right. He didn't
Or
support
of-
the guy in
he
the
di-
beginning.
And even as vice president, how he kind of, we've been using suppressed a lot this episode. He kind of would tell Joe, like in this meeting, like, just let me take, like he would get annoyed with Joe Biden all the time and felt like he didn't really have things to add to policy discussions.
Well, wasn't the running joke that the reason why he got Joe Biden is to protect him from being assassinated?
What? I never heard that.
I know they don't want this idiot in the White House.
I've never heard that one either.
Maybe that was on South Park or something. I don't know. But anyways, but I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you remember the bracelet? I mentioned that.
Kamala Harris is running, so she can be president.
It's incredible. It really is incredible how. I joke with this thing. Trump says bigly, we're winning bigly. But if you look at the Democrat Party and you look who's running, when you look back and you look at Clinton, and I'm not talking about Hillary, I'm talking about Bill. Bill was a genius. I gotta admit, the dude was extremely smart.
He was a great politician.
He was a good politician.
Good at working those.
Obama, he was horrible, but he was a great orator. The guy had.
It wasn't horrible. What do you mean horrible as a politician?
Well, no. Horrible as a guy who basically
running the country. Okay, that
Right.
Obama was clearly a good politician. Everybody underestimated him.
He was. Listen. Even now, Bill Clinton would be ostracized from the Democrat Party.
Well, it's sort of funny. Bill
That's
Clinton
true.
told Hillary. I was reading this. Bill Clinton's aides went to Hillary's aides and said, "Hey, Bill tells Hillary you need to start going to Michigan. You need to go to Michigan," and she didn't go.
She didn't go. I mean, for all his indiscretions, this guy was a genius.
He told Hillary, "Listen, I know them bitches and hoes up in Michigan,
and the one in Vegas.
You need to go there, and you can't get their vote unless you have a penis or you go there. So we know you don't have a penis, at least last time I checked, which was 20 years prior, and so you need to go."
Yeah, she didn't, and she talked bad about coal, and then went to West Virginia the next week, and people are like, "You were just talking about why are you here?"
Bill Clinton may not know much, but he knows white women.
He knows politics.
Well, he's right. He knows politics. He knows politics, and he knows that furniture in the White House. But my point is this: when you look at what they've offered, 2016 Hillary Clinton. I mean, horrible, man, horrible. And now it's like they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Well, the people that I feel like if you look at people like Elizabeth Warren, it was like, man, the policy people, it's so much about personality and your infrastructure, your connections that you already have in the party right now. Because you would have, I felt like people like that would have had a better chance. But I guess because she's not all that fun to listen to.
No, she's horrible.
I
remember when she had that beer, she was drinking a beer and she asked her
with
husband,
her
"Would you like a beer?"
husband,
a beer?
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
She just
Give me
wasn't
some
all that
cognac.
personable.
Hillary was drinking a beer?
No, Elizabeth Warren was drinking a beer. And then everybody made
They had
some
other
some
candidates, they just didn't make it.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Warren, wasn't she a Harvard professor?
Yeah, because she was because she was
Trump calls her. By the
Indian.
way, that still to me is the greatest nickname of all time.
And he literally will never say
He will
her
never.
name.
He won't.
And what's crazy is anywhere you go in a political circle, if you say Pocahontas, everybody knows who you're talking about.
Yeah. He brands people.
Well, he does. And he does a good job at it. But, you're going back to Obama. I have to believe Obama is seeming. I mean, he's just frustrated that here you had, he had planned for Hillary. Remember he said, "Oh, Hillary, Bill, you got to admit it. Hillary's more qualified than you and I put together." She loses, and all the stuff that he did is just being dismantled at an alarming rate. And the only thing that's left is the ACA.
And I'm willing to say that he dismantled it. I mean, he put in the stuff that could have caused a recession. He dismantled his own legacy. Trump didn't really do it.
Well, a lot of the stuff he put in, he did it through executive order, which was easy to just back out of it.
Not all of it, because some of it, John Roberts came along and said,
"Well, yes,
hey,
of course,
you can create this.
Yes,
you could create this by this DACA stuff by executive order, but you can't uncreate it by executive order."
Right.
What kind of doohickey is that?
Because he was black.
John Roberts.
Because he liked black men. That was who was that? That was who appointed John
Roberts?
Was it Bush?
Appointed Chief Justice, I believe, was Bush.
Yeah, it was Bush. Yeah,
it was Bush.
Yeah, it's very.
But that was the old the old days.
Guards, yeah,
so in a week's time now, they're gonna vote on Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
Why Republicans are still sticking to the tradition, I don't know. Just go ahead and vote for this woman. Vote for Amy. Put her out on the Senate floor. Well, they said, as customary, we're going to allow a week before we vote in committee.
Well, it's not even constitutional to have a hearing, anyways.
Or wait for the vote. It's not constitutional for it to be voted on in committee.
Well,
it only needs to be voted on by the Senate.
You know why? Because I do believe that Republicans want to be liked. They want to be liked. You know, no one grows up saying, "Oh, mommy, I want to be hated." That's when I want.
Well, I think too they get criticized. Like even with Kavanaugh, they said, "Oh, you're rushing the hearings. You're not bringing in enough witnesses. This isn't fair." Like they get criticized if they don't go according to the book, and then they come against them and say, "Oh, look, the Republicans have this agenda. They're trying to force through candidates. They don't want the Americans to really know what's going on."
I mean, but they should listen. They should before like the candidates that we have that are running for the House and the Senate. They should know, and maybe we should have a sit down with every possible candidate. And say, listen, your ass is going to be hated, so you might as well get used to it. And if you can't take it, then you need to leave.
I think what they have to do, the Republicans should have just came out and said, "This is the procedure we're going to take. We are hearing for 4 days, and then 2 days after the 4-day hearing, we're going to vote in committee. And the day after that, we're going to vote in Senate, period. She'll be confirmed within 8 days, 9 days tops."
I agree with you. I
understand that they get hit for it, but they get hit anyway. I don't think Republicans are going to lose any votes, by unless they did want to do that in old Susan Collins.
Yeah.
Well, today it's finally over. The hearings are finally over, and
there's going to be a week. They got to wait now. They're going to wait a whole week to vote, which makes no sense. That's a whole week for Democrats to come up with some bullshit and say, "Oh, now we need more hearing time
because we need more hearing time." We found a Christian ballsless for
somebody. This is madness.
Yeah, it is.
The question is, can this week go by and nothing? All Democrats are going to do in this week is try to search for a way to delay the vote
they're gonna
on
find
this nomination.
Right. You give them an inch and they'll take them out. And that's the stuff we need to stop doing.
See somehow that they can benefit from that. I don't know.
The way you can benefit from it is just to vote.
Confirm.
Yeah, basically, and move on to something else.
They'll say, "Oh, look at how this is why we need 4 more years. Look at what they're doing." I don't know.
I just don't. I don't know. I don't understand why the Republicans just won't vote.
Like you said, I think it has a lot to do with wanting to follow so-called tradition.
I mean,
this
you
is
wouldn't
not a tradition.
Everybody,
because Democrats wouldn't even do this.
Listen, these senators are old and crusty. Any one of these Republicans can die at any moment.
Oh my God.
Ooh. I didn't
they
say
could
that,
die. So vote now while people are alive. Look at what happened to RBG. But everybody will say, yes, RBG is old. Yes, she's old, but we'll get there election day. We'll get there. Look, she died.
Vote while you're still above the earth.
Exactly. Vote now.
There's no time like the present.
Yeah.
Vote now. Why wait till tomorrow on what you can vote on today?
Because you're right. They're going to beat you up anyways. They're basically going to continue to beat you up. So
I mean, Lindsey Graham is fighting for his life out there against, who's he running against? The black guy that raised like $60 million in 2 days or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I heard. I've been seeing so many anti-Lindsey Graham ads too. And it's like I'm not even there. What are you?
Lindsey, Lindsey Graham's opponent has so much money. They're running ads out of state just in case. And just in case you happen to be out of state and you're coming back to state to vote.
Right.
That's just
like, why am I seeing this?
Lindsey Graham's in a fight for his life out there.
Jamie Harrison.
That's it. You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm Donald Trump was right the other day when he said Republicans need to get tougher. He was on the Rush Limbaugh program and he said Republicans need to get tougher.
Well,
and I absolutely believe that.
Well, that's this is the interesting thing, and this is what I tell our candidates that are running that we've endorsed. Trump has laid the groundwork on how to fight Democrats, how to fight liberals, how to fight radicals. That, what do you say, the best strategy, or the best defense is an offense, just to keep on attacking them. You do it in different ways, but you continue to attack them. And that's, if you follow Trump's lead.
Never surrender.
Right, never surrender. And, you're, I guess people believe that we can work together. We don't even have a common interest with Democrats. And we probably never will. I mean, they're going to continue to go far left.
They don't. Democrats now, not Democrats of the Bill Clinton era, but Democrats now believe that you're inherently evil.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They believe you have no moral compass, and that leads them to be an all-out. That's why anything is justified against a Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. Because you're a racist, because you're a bigot, because you're a homophobe, because you're a xenophobe. Anything that they do to you is justified.
That Saul Alinsky tactics. And also Jamie Harrison, they said that he spent or reserved more than $61 million in TV ad spots.
Jeez.
Compared to Lindsey Graham's $22 million.
You know what? This is the thing. Hollywood is behind these liberals, these liberal candidates.
Yeah.
You know, we mentioned George Soros, but George Soros, it's not just him. It's corporations. Corporations are behind. People think that the Democrats are for blue collar workers. No, they're for the filthy rich corporations as well as those people who run it. They really are. I mean, you look at the polls that show how much from these corporations are given to Democrats in comparison to given to Republicans. I mean, prime example, you're talking about Facebook and you're talking about Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Literally doing that, you know they are giving money hand over fist to Democrat candidates.
Right. His campaign manager said they are holding nothing back. They will spend every dollar that's been donated in ads, organizing, and communication with black voters.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, because he's trying to win a Senate seat, so they have to. Get this. So I'm looking at today. I'm seeing top battleground states. Biden is plus 4.9 in the top battleground states. I'm looking at Real Clear Politics, Thursday, October 15th. This is where I'll take you to the latest election polls. Pennsylvania, Biden plus 3. Arizona, Biden plus 3. Now, Monmouth has him in Arizona, Biden plus 7. South Carolina, Trump plus 8. Maine, Biden plus 10. Virginia, Biden plus 15. Arizona, wait, hold on. And then we go back to Florida, Biden plus 2, Biden plus 2. Quinnipiac has Biden plus 7 in Georgia. Biden plus 2 in Georgia, WXIA-TV and Survey USA have him. Man, if he's able to flip, I don't know. This is not looking very good, guys.
I know. I had someone reach out to me. They're like, do you have any insight on this polling? Like, is this really the polling? I'm like,
well, like I said, I think people need to go back and look at 2016 about this time and what it was for Hillary Clinton. It's very similar, very close to it.
Wow. This is, yeah, look at this. What'd you say? Wait, what did you say?
No, I said people need to go back, and even Real Clear Politics has it, to where you can go back and you can look at the 2016 polls just before the election and how Hillary Clinton was up in total about 3.2%.
Well, some of the ones you mentioned were in the margin of error, but some like 7
yeah, but Biden is up more than Hillary was up right now.
Like 7, 9, 8 points.
Like Monmouth had Hillary up 6 points. Fox News had her up 4 points.
Yeah, but that's the national. You need to look at just the battleground states, just the battleground states where she was up right now. I mean, this is. Also the difference was this. There were some polls that were striking Trump's way, right? So if you remember last time, there were some polls, not a lot, but some polls were striking Trump's way. This time, no poll is striking Trump's way, unless we say, is there a 5% undervote of the polling? Is there 5%? Is there 50 people who are either lying? Well, they'd have to be lying, because if you don't answer, they don't count you. They just wait till someone answers. So,
right.
Are there 50 people that are lying about who they're inclined to vote for?
Well, they said, I think Real Clear Politics is saying that.
Check this out.
Basically, 180 days to election, they had Hillary up in top battleground states by 6 points.
6 points. They had her. Okay, yeah, battleground states.
It went down to 2 points 100 days out, back up to 5 points 70 days out, down to 1 point 40 days out, and then back up to 5 points 19 days out.
And what's the difference? Biden has been consistently going up the whole time.
Yeah, well, you're right. Well, yeah, okay, but
They haven't had him within 1 or 2
Well,
points.
as you said, yeah, right. It's an October 18th article by the Wall Street Journal of 2016 where North Carolina, Hillary Clinton was up +6, Pennsylvania +6, Wisconsin +5, Georgia +4. Now Trump had Florida, and he had Texas and Arizona. But like I said, I think the polls, even now, they're going for broke in the sense that, oh, don't worry, he's going up. Joe Biden is going up. We've got this all lock and step. The interesting thing, and I want to say this, is that I think this will work against them, saying that because I think people who are really adamant for Trump, as we are, and who have seen the last 4 years of what Trump has produced, are going to say, you know what? I'm taking no chances. I'm going to the polls. I'm not going to believe in the polls and what they say. And even if they do say it, regardless. But you're going to look at these Democrats and say, oh, man, Biden is up by whatever, 7, 8, 9, 11 points. Yeah, I don't really have to go to the polls. I can take.
I don't
really
think
don't
so
have to be
because they're gonna come out because this is the animus I was talking about. They're gonna come out to vote against.
Early voting is almost double what it was last time. I mean, they're gonna say, well, we're gonna make sure he gets voted out. I just don't see. I'm trying. So last time when you look at it, right, you could see a lot of different. Well, first of all, number one, Trump was an outsider. That's number one. Last time, I don't think he's really viewed as an outsider this time. Number two, you have a situation where I would be more inclined to believe. I do think the distance is closing, but I still, in my mind, it's believable that Biden's ahead, and the only reason why is because the current president is getting the most crap for COVID and for the downturn in the economy. That's the problem. I mean, I heard a guy on the radio the other day said, the Republican Party, you're with me. The people, was it Savage's people? Somebody we were listening to, and they were saying, the Democrats' argument is that the Republican Party is the party of COVID.
Oh, commentary.
Commentary, that's right. They're the party of COVID. And I never thought about that, but when I began to watch it, that's essentially what they were. They're making a healthcare argument. And the stuff about the ACA, blindly, Republicans are around thinking that's about Obamacare. It isn't. It's about to remind you about health. In other words, COVID.
Right.
And so the only reason I could say the polls are somewhat believable is because of COVID. Any president, Republican or Democrat, would have a very hard time in a re-election when you have an outbreak that's killed almost 250,000 people in the country. And it doesn't matter comorbidity. That stuff doesn't matter to everyday people. That's talking points. That's circle jerking for us here on this table, right? They just know it as COVID deaths because that's what the quote unquote experts say. It's really and the question is, hey, who do you want to sit down and your kids to talk to? Yeah, Joe Biden has dementia. Yeah, he's got some more grandkids, but he's not going to say anything stupid sitting down and offensive. Whereas Trump wasn't he just on his knees begging suburban women? Just yesterday?
He was saying, please like me.
Exactly. What the heck? Doesn't that remind you of Jebra? Please clap.
Yeah.
You remember that? So, I mean, somebody got in Trump's head and said, hey, listen, suburban women don't like you. Why don't they like you? I mean,
they had been saying his poll numbers were down with suburban women for a long time. And after Trump won, a lot of people blamed specifically suburban white women. Yeah. Because I think he got half
He got way more than what they.
And they thought like, what? We thought, grab you and all that would turn you guys off. And they blamed them saying you guys didn't come out for whatever.
Yeah.
So they put the blame on that election on suburban white women before.
I mean, even the polls that are friendly to the president, right? I'm looking at even these polls, like I said, that are friendly to the president. I'm looking at this going, what do we do? Right? What do we? I mean, have you looked at these things? Pennsylvania. Okay, so Pennsylvania is within the margin of error, right? According to Insider Advantage. Ohio Predictive Insights for Arizona and Monmouth. Monmouth doesn't have the margin of error. Ohio Predictive Insight does. South Carolina, Trump is up. Maine, all Biden. North Carolina, Biden, narrow. I guess it could get, Michigan, +9. Arizona, what's the average here? It looks like. Arizona looks like it's +7 average. Rasmussen, guys, it's just not looking good. It's just not looking good.
Well, on that note,
I know, right?
I don't know what else to say.
I'm sorry.
No. Listen. I wrote a book for the guy for NJP's sake. And I don't want it to be. I don't want it to be where. Well, it probably is going to be this way. When Trump wins, they're going to say that we need to take the polling numbers instead of the actual votes. Remember they did that with they tried to do that here in Florida.
When I was in the political science department, there was some stat guy who came in with an argument about taking a 10,000 random poll and taking 100,000 people, 10 polls, 10,000 random sampling, have the top 10 polls do it and let that determine the presidency. I remember that crazy argument then. I remember all of us were sitting around freshman year going, who the hell brought this guy in here with his glasses and his pipe and his patches on his suit coat? I don't want people to be down in the dumps. I know people are like, oh my God, these guys, but all we have to go by is the data that we're looking at. All we have to go by is the data that we're looking at.
What about the rallies? You know, go by the rallies?
I can look at the rallies, but the rallies have nowhere near been what they were before.
Well, of course, you got COVID.
I could argue this. Limited. You know what I could argue? Yes, Trump is having a great turnout at the rally because if you live in one of these lockdown states, that's the only thing you can go to because everything else is freaking closed. Hey, Joe Biden had one rally and had a pretty good turnout.
He did? What rally was this?
What was he doing?
I know he wasn't in Florida with that.
No. He came to something. He just did something. Joe Biden high-end rally.
In a wheat field?
Joe Biden.
Oh, my gosh. I was looking back at pictures of Obama's rallies, the rallies that he used to have, and it's like, oh, my God, that's so many people.
Yeah, and see what happened.
Obama's.
That was back in
Obama's, in 2008. I was like, wow.
They wanted to be amongst blackness, so I guess.
They were pretty diverse rallies, but I just was like, I guess it's just interesting how everyone looked at Obama's rallies early on and saw that.
Oh, yeah.
But they kind of denounce Trump's in the same way.
Well, they're going to denounce conservatives. That's what we're all
let me ask you this, right? You're in Michigan. You're an independent person, right? Is it unbelievable that Michigan may be swinging towards Biden? The state is still in lockdown. Yeah. The governor's doing X, Y, and Z. And people aren't blaming the governor. They're blaming Trump. So they could say, yeah, the governor's locked down this.
What people are blaming Trump?
The voters.
I don't think those voters are blaming in Michigan. I don't think they're blaming Trump at all.
Oh yes,
I think they know. I think they know what the governor's doing. They've been out there protesting the governor for the lockdown.
Not everybody's been protesting the governor for the lockdown.
There was a recount petition against their governor.
Yeah,
and guess what?
What?
It didn't get enough signatures.
I know it didn't get enough signatures. Maybe because they shut the people down. They wouldn't allow them. They wouldn't allow them to.
It wasn't casted on. It wasn't.
They said you better not leave your house.
She's still governor.
Well, of course she's still governor. She said if you leave the house.
But what I'm saying is this: is ultimately it's just like I'll put it to you this way: it's just like the police thing. People blaming Trump or Obama for the police stuff when they have nothing to do with it. But I'm not saying they're the real people to blame. What I'm saying is they're taking the blame. Trump is taking the blame for the lockdown. That's why the Democrats are keeping their states locked down.
I understand. What was going on just before Obama was reelected that Obama was being, I can't remember. I don't know if it was Benghazi or was something a little bit more major.
No, well, Benghazi would have been his fault because that was a national issue.
Of course. But my point is, I think I don't think it was Ferguson. He was being blamed for something, but he still won. I can't remember what it is, and I apologize for bringing it up and not having.
What was he being?
He was being blamed, it might have been Benghazi. It might have been Benghazi.
But Benghazi wasn't.
Yeah, but I know. It doesn't really affect Americans.
Thankfully for him, pinned on Hillary, so Hillary carried the majority of that.
And Benghazi was
it wasn't associated with America. Yeah, I know it wasn't associated with
on the
America.
right.
Yeah,
I mean, these people. I mean, these. When I'm looking, I'll put it to you this way: New York is a great example, right? New York, definitely, you should be blaming Cuomo for your problems
and
there. And Cuomo has a 72% approval rating last time I checked 3 weeks ago. 72% approval rating in the midst of a...
But then you got to ask, who are these people that are taking these polls? Come on. You can't say that people are like, I like to be tortured.
Listen, just from anecdotally, they blame Trump because they say, well, Trump wasn't giving the right information. Trump wasn't this. Trump wasn't... talk about a disinformation campaign.
Well, let me tell you something.
But my whole point was, that's why when people say, Biden's up +4, +5, I can say, I can see it. Because COVID and locking down those states, people have reflected that on Trump. Trump got blamed for the nursing home deaths and the ventilators when he actually
he brought the ship over there.
When he said, here's the ship, and they blamed him anyway.
And there was really nobody on the ship.
Well, he said that on Bernie today. He said in New York, I gave them the convention center. We went in, set it up, and they didn't even use it.
I mean, this is... it's because... I'm not saying it's legit, but it's because the media... and all these people, they blame Trump for it. So that's why I'm saying any president would have a hard time right now.
And this is why all those who support President Trump have to be out there voting.
You have to. I don't see how.
I don't see how anyone could vote for Biden or for Hillary. I mean, excuse me, for Harris. But that they hate Trump.
Black Hillary.
Black Hillary, yeah, right. But
I just
it amazes me. It really amazes me how you gonna vote for Joe Biden. I was just watching. They were interviewing a lot of Latinos in Florida. Now the majority of the ones that there is, surprisingly enough, it wasn't a radical liberal news station, but basically you could tell that they were liberal. But they were interviewing Latinos who were really for Trump, and then they found this young kid, and these are older people that basically came from Cuba, Venezuela. They're like, we've seen this before, and we're not interested in repeating this again. But of course, when they started interviewing young people, and they're like, amnesty and DACA and all this other stuff. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you got to get out there and vote for President Trump. I mean, he has constantly been fighting for us, and the least we can do is definitely to vote for him. We want to thank you once again. Yes, we are way done. We want to thank you for joining us at the Arab Reconstruction. And tomorrow will be Friday, and it will be Church Day, right?
That's correct.
Oh,
it will be Church Day.
Bishop Pruitt.
I may not be here.
Uh-oh.
But I'll have to call in a car or something.
Okay.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for being with us at the Arab Reconstruction.
Uncle Ruckus again. No relation. This podcast is paid for by the New Journey PAC and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.